Good evening, everybody. I know we're a few minutes late, but I know initially we said we were going to start off by reading a RuneScape novel with Betrayal and Falador. However, that one still hasn't got here in the mail yet. So we're going to start off with Return to Canfis in the RuneScape series. And we'll get through it tonight here. And then possibly tomorrow, I should get my other one in the mail. So we should start reading that one on Thursday. Unless you guys decide you want me to continue with this. I also have a bunch of other books planned for the future. As far as gaming, and then we can go ahead and take breaks at any time and just chat about things in life, about why I got the name, Freedom Beard, what my theme is with America, all this other good stuff. So, for anybody who's not familiar, aware of RuneScape, which I'd imagine if either A, you're watching this on YouTube right now, or B, you came to my channel, you might be interested in it. But that's for another time. But after we're done with these book series, I've also ordered some stuff in the Blizzard Diablo lore, especially with Diablo 2 getting reborn coming out, a Diablo 4 in the making. I was a huge Diablo fan back in the day. That was actually before I started playing RuneScape. But so we have a lot of content as far as reading goes for our nightly, not nightly, but 3 times a week reading streams. Now, this will also go part onto YouTube as the series called Storytime with the Beard or Storytime with Freedom. Haven't completely figured out yet which way I want to go with that. Now, that being said, we'll also do streams with gaming as well. So feel free to let me know in the chat what kind of stuff you're interested in. So we'll go ahead and we'll start this off today. Now, again, before we get into this, let's go ahead and say that we could just read this one until the other one comes in, or I do have the Betrayal and Falador on my phone that I could read from. That's totally going to be up to you guys. I wait for somebody to let me know in the chat or to comment on this video when it goes live if we want to do it that way until the book comes in. I didn't realize for the longest time how much impact RuneScape really has had on the world of gaming. So basically, not only is RuneScape's economy actually attached to the real life economy, whether you want it to be that way or not, it's not necessarily a good thing. But for a game that's 20 years old, the longevity there is pretty amazing. Now, we also can look at and see that as it's progressing, it's got a storyline, and this book is one of the cheaper ones. The actual Betrayal and Falador, an actual good copy of that book that's not ruined, is actually about $800. Kind of crazy to think about that a book involving video game lore is that price. I was able to pick up a copy of it for $80 instead of $800. So we will have a solid copy, but I also have the digital copy. So yeah, let's dig right into it. So we got RuneScape Return to Canfis by T.S. Church. I keep on saying Betrayal in Falador. It's Betrayal at Falador. So let's go ahead and ignore that. So let's go ahead and get into the prologue here. And it's also going to show the Kingdom of Miscellanean as far as that goes. So we agree that you will provide me with the horse and men. Solo sat with his back to the ruined wall, and the light from the fire reflected in his blind eye. His face hideously scared. 6 months of flight and hiding had thinned his once muscular body. His clothes were torn, rags. The soles of his boots flapped loose. His hair had grown down to his shoulders, and a wild beard covered his face, which irritated his scarred flesh in the hot weather. If I only had hands to scratch the mites, but she has denied me even that. We will indeed, the man replied, although I would feel better if you had a hand I could shake. The bandit leader smiled to his men, 15 in all, who laughed at the joke. Sola said nothing. He had endured far worse than cheap japes, as the ragged clothes tied about each of his wrists testified. Don't worry, my friend. You can trust me, the man continued. I may be an outlaw, but Linder, the thief, always keeps his word. The bandit stroked his short mustache, his eyes greedy. Very well, Sola said. At dawn I will lead you to the treasure. That shall be your payment, but now I must sleep. I am not as strong as I used to be. He stretched out on the ground as best he could and winced at the pain it caused. My bad. Sola closed his eyes to rest, yet he only finged sleep. Oh, it's kind of a weird word, man. That was weird spelling there. Instead, he slowed his breathing, and after a long stretch of silence, the bandits began to murmur. Wow, I don't know where murmur came from, but okay. To one another. As they did, he listened carefully. He could pick out Linder and his lieutenant, Barbic, speaking in low voices. Linder said something which made Barbic gasp. Have they realized who I am? He wondered. Soon after, he heard the scrape of the knife being sharpened across a whetstone. He had taken a tremendous risk in walking to Linder's camp, alone. Jared had advised him against it, and he knew the werewolf would be not too far away. It amazed him how close the creature could get his prey before being detected, close enough that it was always late for his victims. He was probably less than a stone's throw away, even though watching Sola's back. Even now. See, sometimes I kind of miss what I'm reading here. I get kind of lost and read ahead. The knife finished scraping across the whetstone. Perhaps he means to cut my throat with it, Sola moosed. Yet he didn't move. Have they guessed who I am? No doubt the Kinshra have offered a reward for my capture, and a description to go with it. For I know them well. Didn't I lead them once against her? Sola gritted his teeth at the thought of Caramere and their last confrontation, when she had fought him in a single combat and had severed both his hands. It would have been 100 times kinder to kill me, and you knew it. You knew it. Suddenly, Sola felt the right hand clutch in a tight fist. He forced himself to breathe calmly. It wasn't the first time he endured such a ghostly feelings from his hands that he no longer possessed. For the last 6 months, every day had been a trial for him. Without hands, it's impossible to eat, or ride, or fight. He had become entirely dependent on his werewolf friend, Gerard. It made him uncomfortable. Together they had fled and hidden until with agonizing slowness Sola grew strong enough to walk again. Eventually they ventured out to the north into the wilderness, hoping to hide themselves in the lawless realm while they planned how to best revenge themselves upon those who had defeated them. Nevertheless, they had done well together. Jared still had those who aided him on his journey, yet Sola could tell the werewolf feared his master, for who twice had appeared to him, offering him counsel in the wilderness. Sola could tell that the werewolf feared his master. Oh, I read that part. See? Smack me. Bleep. Okay. Sola had heard and seen nothing when it had occurred. Each time the information he had given them had saved them from certain death, so Sola had asked no questions. And that is how I know you were coming after me, Caramera. You Garth, and the barbarian priestess. You are so near. Soon we shall start our journey south to Varrock to complete this plan of Jared's undead master, and I will be there to see it. He dreamt, as he had on thousands of other occasions, of what he would do to Karamera and her friends if ever they came under his power again. I will be there to see it. Linder the thief watched as his men sweat from the work, but made no move to assist them. The ground was hard from the dry summer. They had traveled east all morning to reach their destination, a parched plain where only stricken-colored vegetation grew. Farther south, the land undulated in a series of long, wide burrows, and until their view was finally barred by a small range of hills beyond that. Sola knew that was Varrock. Or Varrock, depending on how you pronounce it. Kathy. Totally not what's supposed to be said there. Can't they dig faster, he demanded. The thief just stated, I would ask you to help, he said. Only I don't think your handiwork would be of any use. He smiled at his taunt. See, that's kind of barbaric, man, right? You're gonna tell somebody that has no hands by commenting on their handiwork. It's kind of twisted in my opinion. But, it's funny. Suddenly a cry from the bandit silenced them. The man drove his spade in the ground where he struck a metallic surface with a loud clang. All attention turned to where he stood. Dig it out, Linder commanded the men. Dug fiercely before dragging box from the earth. Linder knelt by the lock, examining it intently. See, I lose my words all the time. Thanks a lot, brain. You'll need the key, Sola advised. Linder smiled and pulled an object from his pouch. Be patient, my mysterious friend, and see how a genuine thief deals with such a simple barrier. Deftly, he inserted his pick and listened carefully, teasing the teeth of the lock. Second later, it gave a satisfying click and fell open. As Linder's men cheered, Barbik moved to Sola's side, and the fallen warlord noted how the man's hand gripped his sword. As I anticipated, Linder lifted the lid of the box, his eyes widening. As he perceived the thick wad of paper inside. He turned his head and opened his mouth to speak when suddenly he gave a cry and jerked his hand away from the lock, his face grimacing in pain. It's poisoned needle, Sola explained calmly. Its effects are immediate and the pain will drive you mad within hours. Kill him, Linder screamed, leaping to his feet and ferociously massaging his arm. Barbik drew his blade and held it to Sola's throat. Sola didn't move as he stared at him with quiet malice. Barbik hesitated. No sign of weakness. If you are weak, you die. When he spoke, his voice was calm, his words measured. If you spare me, I can make you all rich, for only I know the true value of what is contained inside those parchments, he said. Kill me, and you shall have nothing. Barbik looked back to Linder the thief and collapsed onto his knees and was writing it in agony, while the men stared at their leader and figure emerged from the shadows and stood silently behind him. Perfect timing. Need I add that I will spare your lives? Sola asked as a low growl emerged from the newcomer. The bandit spun and several cried out in fear as the hirsute figure neared. A werewolf, one of them stammered. Several of its fellows drew their blades and held them out, but none dread advance of the creature. Do nothing, for he is my associate, Sola said, from Mortania. His name is Gerard. But put away your rusted weapons. None of them can harm him. They only serve to make him angry, and if that happens, you will not live out the day. "What do you want from us?" Barbix asked. He was a short, bald-headed man with a nose that looked as if it had been broken a number of times, and he spoke in a low grumble. "We shall go to Verok," Sol replied. "It is big enough city to hide in, and with the contents of this box, we will make ourselves rich." The men hesitated. Finally, Barbaric decided for them. "Well, come with us, Sola." "So you do know me?" With realization came anger, that the news of his defeat had spread so far that even in the wilderness, simple bandits dared to mock him. "How long have you known?" he demanded. "Since we made the agreement," Barbic looked to Linder once and licked his lips uncertainly. "Linder wanted to sell you to the Crenshaw, but I thought we would first see the treasure." His eyes fell on the box. "What's in there, anyhow?" Sola laughed. "These parchments contain important information, but they are written in an old Crenshaw code, and only I can decipher them." He turned to face the men who still clustered away from the werewolf. "For now, that is all you need to know. Now get those horses ready." The men moved to obey. Jared reached for Linder. As he did so, the thief drew a knife in trembling hands and found his tongue. "It hurts," he gasped, dropping his knife as Gerard dragged him a short distance away. "As I knew it would," Sola said gleefully. "Alas is a temporary poison that only lasts a single day. An old woman prepared it for me when I was still part of the Crenshaw knighthood." Briefly, he wondered what had become of the Sibyl who had served him so well, but swiftly he shook off such sentiment. He crouched and moved close to the thief, nodding in the direction of the knife that lay on the ground. "That is the easiest way to end your pain, my duplish friend," he sneered. "What's in the box?" Linder stammered. Solon leaned down to speak privately in his ear. "When I was in the Crenshaw, I made copies of certain secret documents. These documents contain sensitive information concerning a number of wealthy people and their organizations. From here all the way to Kandarin, in diplomacy, the Crenshaw often have to persuade influential people to aid their cause, and blackmail has proved a most effective tool." He stood again. "Now I have that tool, and I will use it. The Crenshaw will kill you for it. They would kill me anyway, if they could. Meanwhile, I can have a little fun wrecking their spy networks for a small profit. Can't I?" He looked into the distance. "I think it will start in Verok. There is wealth there. Wealth owned by people whose names appear in those documents." With that, Solo brought his boot into Linder's chin with a sharp crack. The thief's head jerked, and he slumped into unconsciousness. "Why don't we kill him?" Gerard whispered. "No," Sola said. "We need his men's loyalty, at least for now. And killing him might be too much for them to stomach. Besides," he looked warily around him, "lone travelers don't last long out here, especially unconscious ones." A moment later, when Gerard's aide Sola clambered into a saddle, the werewolf stepped away and pulled his cloak about him, hiding his face as he returned to his human form. Once he had done so, he climbed up behind Sola. He never rode alone. No horse would tolerate it, and he was uncomfortable with the beast as they were with him. "We ride south to Verok. If we make haste, we can be there in time for midsummer," Sola said. "Our destination is an estate to the east of the city. The owner has lands that range from the river Salve to the edges of the city itself. There I will send a message to an old acquaintance of mine, the leader of the Phoenix gang." And then, as darkness fell across the wilderness and creatures far more terrible than Gerard stirred, they rode south toward more civilized lands, leaving Linder, the thief, to his fate. Now, it's interesting because if you play the game, the reference to the Phoenix game there is pretty epic in my opinion. However, that was the prologue to kind of give a little stance into the book that we're going to be reading here. We're going to go ahead and end that portion of this now, of the video now, and we will pick back up in chapter 1 should we not decide we want to go with the other book first and then continue on from this one. So I appreciate you guys coming in and enjoying this part of the book, and hopefully this series is interesting to you guys, and I'm looking forward to reading that to you. All right. Thank you for watching.